Right. So very, very sorry about that, but you will get to hear her loud and clear, which is what's most important. Even though she's beautiful,
oh,
more importantly, you can hear her.
Gorgeous.
So take it away again.
Good afternoon or good morning, whichever side of the country you're on. Yes, I told Mara I went through all this trouble to do my hair and makeup, and now nobody can see me. So, because I'd much prefer sitting in my pajamas with my hair sticking out. But anyway, again, welcome. Yeah, I picked this topic mostly because I think in general, a lot of us who have learned the principles over the years or who are brand new to learning the principles, in a subtle way, we start kind of going on a mission to work on ourselves. And again, it's very subtle because, yes, when we learn the principles, it's very powerful. It helps us understand, wow, so this is why I'm such a crazy person, was my first thought. In fact, when I first learned this, that's the first thing that struck me, was hearing the principles explain my life. It explained it. And you know how you hear the saying, a moment before a person dies, their life passes before them. Well, in a way that happened to me. My life passed before me, in that happening, I actually started laughing because I realized it was like the joke was on me the whole time. And I learned the principles when I was 45 years old. So, you know, that's a lot of years where I didn't really understand why things happened the way they did in my life. Now, of course, you know, I went through the various traditional therapies. I was learning to become a psychotherapist myself. So, of course, what we do is we kind of look back on our lives and look at extenuating circumstances, family, events that happen in our lives or happen to us. And in doing that, that was my best way of trying to come to terms with my life. And I'll be honest with you, at the time that I first heard the principles, I really wasn't looking for anything. Prior to that, I had kind of reached the point in my life where I thought, well, you know what, this is as good as it gets. You know, I've done the whole gamut. I've done the New Age stuff. I've done the traditional psychotherapy stuff. I've done 12-step stuff. I did, believe me, I could probably speak to every approach to mankind that was around during my first 45 years. So I reached a point where I wasn't cynical as much as, you know, this is it. This is it. Now I want to start helping other people. And that was the other frustration, because as I was learning to help other people, I didn't see the hopefulness. In fact, it just looked like, again, a lot of work, and almost like we really, once you're kind of in a certain way of life, the best you could do is cope with it. So this is where I was in my life. I was just at that point where, wow, you know, again, this is as good as it gets. And then helping people and helping them see this is as good as it gets. Well, what I didn't realize was I was looking in the wrong place. And of course, I was clueless to that. And when I say looking, I mean, I was looking, but I wasn't looking inside. I was looking outside. And so, again, when I first heard the principles, it was like that commercial, hey, wow, I could have had a V8. It was like, oh, my God, that's the deal, you know? So it was like the veil was open, you know, the curtain was parted, and there was this whole other world that I had no knowing of. So that started my journey in terms of learning the principles. But here's the other funny thing that happened. So as I was learning the principles and I had that huge weight lifted off me, that huge insight, well then again, innocently, I started to, as Mara said, I started to use the principles to be a better person. And this is how it played out. how to be more into my wisdom, how to have more insight, how can I teach better, how can I say the principles correctly, how can I be a role model. I mean, and again, it was the same thing. You know, I felt like, well, I need to, you know, really get calm, which for me, as you can hear me now, I'm not a very quiet person. So, you know, again, I started to grapple with that. Like, well, if this is what it takes for me to do the principle, then I guess I'm not meant to do it, or I'm not meant to teach it, or whatever. And I don't know what happened. There is a point where I finally realized, and I couldn't even tell you when, wait a minute, this is not a way of being. This is not a lifestyle. Again, I don't know how I realized it or when, but again, you know, hitting my head like, "God, Cathy, you're again going down the wrong road." So I started to relax, just in general. I just started to relax about the whole thing. And it's interesting because during all this time, I'm teaching the principles to people who are very troubled. So again, you know, I'm in there trying to help people have a better life. Well, when I had the insight, well, wait a minute, this is not about having a better life, I started changing how I was teaching this to folks. And I started saying things like, you know, I don't know if many of you know, but where I really started teaching this the most was to inmates and the jail system here in Santa Clara County. And so I would walk into the jail, stand in front of inmates who are very troubled, major problems, horrible, violent lifestyles, you know, you name it, drug addiction, gangs, the whole 9 yards. And I'm standing in front of the room, and here's what I started saying to them. Well, first of all, I'm not here to tell you that you need to change. I'm not here to tell you you need to improve yourself. I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't keep coming back to jail or you should leave the gang life. I mean, I don't know why. I just said that to them. I just said, you know, that's not what I'm here for. And, you know, of course, they're looking at me like, well, why are you here? Because every other class that they were participating in, it was all about how they had to change. And I said, just very simply, listen, guys, I'm here to tell you where your life comes from, you know, how all of it comes about, period. That's it. And that's pretty much how I started to see the principles for myself and see the principles for other people. And for me, what happened was I started to have a lighter feeling. I started to not worry about, am I, you know, being a good person, or I stopped worrying about how am I doing. I stopped worrying about when I went through bad stuff. You know, we all still, life still happening. I stopped worrying about, okay, because I know the principles, I shouldn't be feeling this bad. Okay, what should I do? What should I do? It was almost like even when I was going through the tough times, I was underneath it all, grounded. I was okay with going through all of the emotions of it. And again, that's why this topic is so important to me, because again, like I tell the inmates, you know, the principles are not for you to change yourself. It's for you to understand the source of your experience, the source of your spiritual nature. Now, what is that? You know, okay, that sounds great, Cathy. Well, what it means is that as you go through life, as you are in life, moment to moment, from the moment you're born, it's coming from inside of you, and it's coming via the principles, mind, thought, and consciousness. Those are the words we're using to describe, you know, formless power, energy, intelligence, whatever you want to call that, that's allowing you to be alive on the planet and to know you're on the planet and to experience that you're on the planet. See, that's what the principles are about. And again, what I said in the description of what we're talking about today, as I started to get a sense of that, and that's all you can do, just get sort of a sense of it. That's when for some reason, I started to lighten up. I started to not take things so seriously, or if things did get intense, I understood, okay, I'm not, it's okay because I know where it's coming from. I know how it's coming about. And so instead of working on trying to lighten up or working on not taking things to heart, I stopped that. And as I just saw how the principles kind of unfold or how they play out in myself and other people, that's when amazing things started happening to me. And again, with the folks I was working with, as I just started pointing them to the same thing, they started sharing with me, wow, Cathy, I haven't been able to sleep for years, and I'm sleeping okay. Whether it's an inmate in jail or a professional person, sleep is a big issue. People don't get sleep. They don't get quality sleep. So I'm not working on sleeping. I'm not talking about how to have better sleep. But as I point people to the principles, things in their lives start to clear up, again, without, quote, working on it. But here's the paradox of the whole thing. Many of us are brought into organizations or people come to us to work on issues, to work on problems. Mara and I got to spend a lot of time with Mara. We were brought into a company, a huge defense company, because things were really bad. Things were really bad in the company. Low morale, high turnover rate, real smart people were making really stupid mistakes, which cost a lot of money. The company was in a psychological shambles. I mean, it was just in really bad shape. And we were brought in, I think they were desperate because that's what it would take to bring the principals in. And of course, it was George Kransky that was connected to this company. But here's the deal. We were brought in to help fix that. Now, again, there's the paradox. When I showed up, my first thought was, no, I'm not here to fix people. I'm just here to point them to what's behind them. I'm here to point them to why they are going through what they're going through. I'm not here to tell them that they need to change that. And again, as people started to get a sense of what we were pointing them to, then all of those issues started to clear up. And again, unfortunately, we had to come in with the, the goal of helping these problems, but that wasn't our goal. And I know that sounds bizarre, but that's the paradox of the principles. We're not here to fix the world. We're here to point the world to how it happens, how things come about. So that's something that I think if more people could just see that, would really, again, our levels of understanding come up, our levels of consciousness come up. And that's how I think, in general, people start to change the world. Not what they're doing on the outside, it's what's going on the inside. As levels of understanding and consciousness come up, then we naturally do what's right. I mean, again, inmates in jail, they start to naturally see their responsibility in what they've done. They naturally see, oh, I don't need to do that anymore. It's not because they're being told to do it or they're working on doing it. And that's what surprises them. That's where I can really see the proof of what I'm saying, is even they're surprised at some changes because they weren't really looking for some of these changes. So that's when I really knew it has more to do with our level of consciousness than it does working on ourselves. And again, there's nothing wrong with working on ourselves, but I mean, think about it. We could spend 5 lifetimes on stuff. I mean, if you really think about all the things you would like to change about yourself, we have the long list. Well, we can throw the list away. And you know what? We're never going to be perfect. We are never going to have it all together. Now, so that doesn't mean, oh, well, forget it, who cares? I'm not saying have that kind of sense of resignation. Or like I had, this is as good as it gets, as much as being open to the possibility. And as and what that means is having an understanding and an appreciation of how the whole thing works. And that's what I love too, just appreciating how from inside of us through these principles, my life happens. And there are times I don't appreciate it or I wish it were different. But again, underneath that, I thank God that at least I understand how it came about. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to go through things, but it certainly takes the edge off. It takes the edge off to the point where I can still be in my life no matter what's going on. And so, again, if you find yourself, quote, using the principles, if you find yourself trying not to have a negative feeling, or if you find yourself, here's another one I hear a lot, well, because I know the principles, I shouldn't take this personally. Or because I know the principles, I should know better. Oh my God, that's even worse. It's almost like you're using this profound knowledge against yourself, which is you're not seeing it. You're just not seeing it. You have this whole other idea of what's going on. And I hope that's making sense because I think, yeah, innocently, I mean, we all want to be helpful and we all want to do right by people and we all want to be in a good feeling and all that great stuff. But that's not what we're here for, at least in the context of learning and knowing the principles or wanting to teach the principles. The point is, again, appreciating and having a sense of what it really is and being okay with not knowing and not understanding at times why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. In my head, I know it's coming from the principles, but the other part of me is, well, then why do I have to go through it? Well, you only know what you can know. Sid Banks used to say that to me. He was so cute. Sydney Banks is the man who we learned this understanding from. And I had the privilege of being able to spend time with him. And so we would hang out, be having coffee, and he would look at me and he would say, now, Cathy, you know you don't know. I go, oh, I know, I don't know. Oh, I know, Sid, I don't know anything. And then in the next breath, he would look at me and he would say, you keep doing what you're doing. He said, it's because you appreciate or have this humility of what we're really talking about here. He said, that's when things happen. So you keep doing what you're doing, but don't get on your high horse about that that this is how, that this is how people should change. It was more, again, appreciating the mystery of the whole thing. And again, I do. I marvel at it. I just marvel at it. And I get the privilege of, seeing it within my own life. But boy, when I get to see it in other people's lives, where, transformations happen right in front of me, who can explain that? Again, it's beyond my comprehension. The only thing that I could say, if there's going to be anything to do, it would be to just, again, be open and to have that certainty, because I do have that certainty, the existence of these principles. It's kind of like we know gravity, you've heard this a million times, we know gravity exists, we know it exists, but I can't get my hand around it. I can't, grab it and kind of move it around. It just is. Well, again, appreciating the principles, they just exist. And it's why I'm here alive on the planet. So it just helps me I don't know. I'm in my humanity for all it's worth, and appreciating all aspects of it, and appreciating how funny we are as people. I don't know if any of you saw that movie Contact. It's a fabulous movie. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend seeing this movie. But it's about you know, this, you know, people from another planet, a gazillion light years away, finally make contact with Earth, and the star, I can't think of her name. Anyway, finally they send a special ship for a human being from the Earth to go visit their planet. And so, you know, this whole thing happens as she finally gets there, but it looks the same as Earth. It was a beautiful beach, and the voice sounded very human. She couldn't see the voice, but she could hear somebody speaking to her. And they said, well, we did this so that you could, you know, be comfortable with us. And she said, well, I want to know what you know, and I want to learn what you guys have here. And he said, well, here's the thing. You know, you guys are an amazing planet. You have this amazing gift of thought, of the principle. This is my take now. But you know, you're just not ready yet. You've got a ways to go, because you just couldn't really appreciate or understand where we go, which is, you know, a gazillion light years away. And it really struck me, because in a way that's us. We have this amazing gift, this knowledge, and all of us on the planet, every human being. And because we don't understand that we have this gift, again, innocently, we're wreaking havoc in the world. And Sid speaks of this. It's because of the level of understanding that we have all the wars and we have all the problems going on. And me, who used to be part of civil rights and women's rights and, you know, out there on the streets, you know, fighting for people's rights, what I finally realized in this movie, what he's saying to her is, you need to evolve inside. Your consciousness needs to come up. And you guys are doing great. You're doing amazing things. You're doing amazing things, but you just aren't there yet. And then, of course, she comes back to Earth, and all chaos happens because of what she experienced, and nobody believes in it. It becomes political. And again, it just represents to me the state of the world, that if we don't see it, we just don't see it. So again, just appreciate, if you learn the principles and you just got a sense of them, you got it from them, you know, a lot of times when we first hear them, we start to feel better right away. And then the feeling goes away and we think, oh, what's wrong, what's wrong? I've got to do something to get that feeling back. Well, no, that's not the problem. The problem isn't trying to feel better. The problem is not worrying about that. Roger Mills was one of my incredible teachers, and we used to sit, you know, every 2 months we'd go meet for the weekend, a group of us, and he'd go around the room, how's it going, and you know, I would sit there and go, well, I'm not doing too well. And he said, well, what do you mean you're not doing too well? I said, well, I'm having days where I'm really down, and he would say, well, okay, so what's wrong with that? And I said, what do you mean what's wrong? No, that's wrong. It's bad to have that down day. You know, I'm teaching people the principle. I can't have a down day. And he said, well, what, you're not human? And I said, well, no. And then I heard myself say, no, I'm not human. And that's when I realized, you mean it's okay to have a down day? And he laughed. He said, it's okay. Everything's okay. I mean, it's all grist for the mill. I mean, there's no right or wrong, good or bad. It just is. And it's cute because then we would get excited about all our insights we would have. And he would see us share our insights. And he would say, well, you don't want to get attached to those either. You don't want to make that your goal, to have insight or to have a good feeling, because that's not what this is either. And, you know, at the time I got very frustrated. I said, well, what do you mean I can't have insights? It was almost like, you know, no sex, no rock and roll, no drugs, and no insights. I mean, it's like, give me a break here. That's a joke, by the way. But anyway, again, appreciating how my life is unfolding. So that's pretty much how I see it. When you have that compassion or neutrality for yourself, people feel that from you. They feel that from you. You know, imagine a person in your life who, when you were having a tough time, actually accepted you and saw the best in you, regardless of your shortcomings. Remember how great that felt? Well, I think we can start doing that for ourselves. You know, again, who's the hardest on us? You know, who judges us the most? Who criticizes us the most? It's us. It's us. And if you could see that, again, it's just our humanity, it's just the principles coming through me, then, man, having that neutrality or that compassion, it just, I'll tell you, it takes the, you know, the weight off of you, and that's where lightness comes from. It's like all of a sudden I don't have to carry all this stuff around in my mind. It's not necessary, but it's from that insight that, again, it's all just coming via the principles. So I don't know what else to say. I tend to like questions, you know, more. You know, once I've said something, I love to get questions. So I'd be open for anybody asking a question, whether it be Mara or anybody in the group. So what do you think, Mara?
Again, well, I'd love to open it up to people if they want to ask questions. Again, this is my first time hosting this, so I thought there was a little hand. If anyone sees a little hand, you can click on that, but I don't see one. So I think what would be the easiest thing is if you have a question, there's a little box on the bottom of the panel that says chat. If you want to just send me a quick note saying Q, which I'll understand means you have a question, then I can unmute you. So I can unmute anyone who has a question. So just send me Q in the chat box, and I'll know to unmute you. Or if you see that little hand raised up, but I can't find it on mine, so I don't know how to tell you. Oh, Joe found it. Okay, Joe Swift has raised her hand.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to unmute you, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Hi, Joe. Is she there?
She's there and she's unmuted, but I'm not sure that it's...
Yeah, I'm not hearing her.
We can't hear you, Joe. Try, oh, here she sent a chat. I don't have a microphone, but I do have a question. Okay, great. Type me the question, Joe, and I'll read it out to Cathy.
The world of technology.
I know. It seems like we're so advanced and yet so, I don't know, dragging our feet all at the same time.
I hear you. I hear you. If I had to type, I'm so slow.
I'm assuming that you heard me, Joe, if you can go ahead and ask a question. Type me a question.
Oh, she hasn't typed yet?
No, and I don't know if it's just a really long question or...
Is this Joe from the UK?
No, this is someone named Joe Swift. Okay, here we go. Here's the question. I've known about the principles for a few months now, and I feel as though I understand them, but I've found that my mind has been really busy ever since. I just can't seem to stop thinking about the principles. How do I stop that? And yes, I am from the UK. It's a good question, yeah?
So the question is, I can't stop thinking, or I can't stop thinking about the principles.
Yeah,
or both.
She's just learned about the principles the last few months and feels as though she understands them, but finds that her mind has been really busy ever since, and she can't seem to stop thinking about the principals.
Okay.
How do I stop that? She says.
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you, don't worry about stopping it. So, if you heard what I just said, a couple of things are probably going on. And again, this happened to me early in the game too. I remember, you know, having learned the principles, all of a sudden I became very aware of how much thinking I had. I mean, I was just like, wow, I'm in so much thinking. And that's where I started getting this idea. I've got to work on not having that thinking. I've got to somehow work on that. And yeah, I thought a lot about the principles also. I mean, because it so impacted me. It really did, yeah, I did a lot of thinking about it. And thank God I only made a few attempts to share it with family members or whatever before I realized that was not the way to go. But yeah, it literally just, yeah, I became very much constantly thinking about the principles, and then I was around a lot of people who were also part of this. I wasn't by myself when I learned principles. So I had all these friends and colleagues, and so we were kind of brought together around the principles. So yes, it kind of consumed my life for a while. Well, here's the first thing. I think it's natural when we learn something new that it just gets in there, and it's just going to be there. I mean, that's just the way it works. The thing I want to say to you is, again, as we understand and get a sense of the principles, we start to become aware of thought coming through us. We start to realize how much thought there is going on. And I'll be honest with you, it freaked me out when I had more of an awareness of it. It was almost like, oh my God. Well, it wasn't like it just started because I learned the principles. It'd been like that all along. It's just that I became more aware of it after learning the principles. So what's been going on in you now, what's going on in you now has been going on all along. It's just the topic is different, but you've probably been in that for a long time. Here's the deal. Don't work on changing it because, I mean, think about it. If you start to want to change your thinking, it takes thought to change thought. So inadvertently, we end up creating more instead of less. It's kind of like, you know, when people can't get to sleep and you lay in bed and you think, oh God, I've got to get to sleep. And you try to get to sleep and you keep thinking about you're not sleeping. And well, you know, 2 hours later, you're still trying to get to sleep as opposed to, oh, well, I'm just not sleeping. Oh, well. And again, because I know it's just thought coming through and it's keeping me awake, I don't put any meaning on that. I don't think it's good or bad. I just know what it is. Oh, well, okay, I'm in it. And my understanding of it is what allows it to pass, not trying to get in there and do something. So because you're kind of new, you've learned this a few months ago, this is probably an important talk for you to hear. Again, this is not about doing anything with your thinking. It's just knowing that for whatever reason, it's just in there, and and your thinking is all about the principles. Obviously, because you're learning something new and you're into it, obviously, and just let that be, because the nature of thought is, as it comes through, the less meaning and the less attention I give it, the less I see what it really is. When I say really what it is, it's formless. Thought is formless. It's nothing. It's like steam or it's like smoke. It's nothing. But if you don't get a sense of that, and when I say sense, it's not something you know from your head. It's what you know in your gut. It's that intuitive sense of, okay, it's just thought coming through. And it's that deep knowing about it that's going to, eventually, it will clear itself out on its own, So, you know, don't worry about it. You just did it. And, well, it could be worse. You could be having, you know, lots of thoughts about something else. again, and I told myself this, there were times when I saw my kind of obsession with the principles, and I was reading everything and taking notes and you know, just kind of went a little nuts with it. One day, this voice inside of me said, Cathy, stop. And it really was a voice inside of me that said, Cathy, stop that. And because, and thank God we have our wisdom, or whatever you want to call it. Having nothing to do with me, something just occurred to me from within me. And I thought, okay, I just need to chill, you know. But again, it was an intuitive feeling that I got from the inside. And as soon as I did that, as soon as I just sort of relaxed about the whole thing, all kinds of answers got questions got answered, all kinds of things started happening. So, you know, just hang with it. Just hang with it, and just if you could just see it's only thought coming through you, and it's formless, it's your humanity, and it's not going to hurt you one way or the other, and just see what happens. Okay.
Cathy, she sent you a follow-up message saying, yes, I think you're right. I think I've always had a busy mind. I just notice it more now. Thanks. That makes sense to me.
And that's exactly what happened. That's what Roger Mills said to me. He said, Cathy, you're only experiencing what's been there all along. Now you're just aware of it. And then I said to him, I said, oh, my God, it's that bad? And he laughed. He laughed at me. He said, it's not bad. It's just that you've been a busy bee your whole life, and that's just the way it is. Don't worry about it. So I'm glad she did that. Thanks, Jeff.
Sorry, that's my. I'm not at my house right now. I'm on vacation, but.
Poor Mara.
So I have another question.
Great.
From someone named Michael Guido.
Okay.
And then there's also another question after that from Yitzi. Yitzi? I know Yitzi. Anyway, Michael Guido says, and I'm not sure if I understand this, so I might try to unmute you and see if you can say it, but he says, when you first began to practice the 3 principles, did teaching others help you understand them on a deeper level? I'm trying to figure out how to work the system. I don't know if that's a joke, and like he means like, so if I teach others, will I get deeper?
Yeah, is there a shortcut?
Yeah, let me see if I can.
That's pretty funny.
I'm gonna try to unmute you, Michael, so you can tell us. Hey, Michael, can you?
Oh, I can hear him.
Hello?
There are a lot of voices.
Hello?
I just unmuted you so you could ask your question directly to Cathy. I wasn't sure what you meant by working.
Oh no, I was trying to figure out I guess on the computer how to be able to ask the question, and I didn't know if it was actually going through to you. Hello?
Okay, well, yeah, I got your question, and I went ahead and asked Cathy for you, so she's going to answer now. Thank you.
Michael, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Okay, Michael, here's the deal. There are no shortcuts. Okay, the fact that you're even looking for a shortcut is going to keep you from getting a shortcut. Again, the paradox of the whole thing. But no, that's a great.
He was asking about working the system. He meant literally working WebEx. So.
Say what?
When he was saying I'm trying to work the system, he meant he was trying to figure out. I misunderstood it.
Oh, that's great.
His question is literally, when you started teaching the principles to others, did that deepen your understanding?
Okay, great. That's a great question. Oh, that's funny. Work the system. Okay. Well, it's still the same. You know what, Michael? There's no rhyme or reason. There really isn't. Although I will tell people, you know, people who hear the principles the first thing I tell people is let them let you see them for yourself. I mean, meaning it's almost like the more you see them in your life for yourself, that's where the teaching comes from. And so you can only teach what you have experienced or what you know. And people say, well, what does that mean? Well, if I started teaching an aspect of the principle that I really don't have a good sense of, you know, it might be not being there are certain situations where I still get reactive. You know, there's certain situations I still have reactions. Well, I'm probably not going to teach about that area. You know what I mean? I really want to teach what I have experienced or what I see for myself. And that's where your depth and your humility comes from, because people pick up on that. They pick up on, you know, the feeling state you're in and the place from where you're sharing. They feel it resonates for them. It feels true for them. And as that resonates for them and you see where they're going and what's happening with them, then then all of a sudden I really start to appreciate, wow, this is amazing. And so it's kind of, it works both ways, but when it comes to teaching, that's key. That's really key. And people say, well, then it's going to take me a while to be able to teach. And that's not true either, because the principles are not anything to do with time. Your knowing and your wisdom has nothing to do with time. The fact that you're on this call means something hit you about the principles, and something, you're starting to see things in your own life. And that, you can just teach that like now. You can teach that like right now. I remember when we used to sit with Roger Mills and you know, we would say, God, where do you find things to teach about? I mean, metaphors or examples and all that good stuff. And he would say, well, you can start from the moment you woke up in the morning. You can teach the principles from what you experienced just from waking up. And at first we weren't sure what he meant, but then I started to realize, oh yes, as long as I'm a thinking being, I have limitless examples of where and how I see thought. And it could be something really silly, like I'm in the shower and I'm, you know, thinking about a zillion other things. I'm in my day and I have no experience of being in the shower. That's a great insight to have about how thought works for me. How I could be in the shower, but really not be in the shower. That I'm literally somewhere else. So again, yes, I think the more I share, the more it helps me see things deeper, mostly because somebody can teach it back to me or share something they've seen where they have literally passed me up, where they see something even more profound. And I'm sitting there like, okay, I am the student right now and I'm listening to a teacher. See, again, that's the way this works. All our wisdom connecting to other people's wisdom. And so there's no time frame on that. There's no limit on that. And the more, again, I'm always ready to hear something from another human being that will really just impact me in an amazing way. So it's kind of a two-way thing, and everything happens in its own time.
He has a follow-up. I'm going to unmute him. Michael, I just muting you because you have a lot of background noise, but I'll unmute you now so you can follow up.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, exactly what you were saying as far as teaching. I actually came to the awareness of the three principles through a book that I read. It's called Inside Out Revolution by Michael Neal.
Yes, I know that.
And it's an amazing book. And I guess like ever since then, it awoke me to a certain state that I can't. I mean, I still can explain it to people. I just tell them that how we have that natural sense of well-being,
Right.
and you know, and I share it with them. And then I guess when I begin to see what they struggle with, it's like I see a reflection of myself. You know, and when I guess I was more in that same state, and I find that I'm almost like in a constant state of meditation, even when I'm awake. I'm always, like I had mentioned before to the previous person that asked a question, that you just allow it, you allow your emotions, and then like it's all of a sudden, you know, I'll feel a certain level of stress or sadness or any of the emotions, and then I realize that I'm able to come back to that place, a place of peace, and it's always there.
Okay.
Which, I mean, and it just happened like literally overnight. I can't explain how quickly it happened. It just did.
No, I know it can. I know it can happen that way. So, okay, go ahead.
And I guess what I'm trying to go in regards to the question about as teaching it to other people. I mean, I guess is the more you immerse yourself in it, the greater. Well, because then it goes back to thought again, which is kind of like the part that I guess drives me a little bit, like on the back and forth. You know, to just remain in that state, the state of awareness of how you can be at peace, and I guess sharing it and giving it back, just I guess allows me to stay, I guess, in that energy level or in that plane of peace.
Okay. Okay. Well, there are two things I'd like to say to what you just said. The first one is, this is not about being in a state. It's not being in a state. Now, this happens to a lot of people. When you heard whatever you heard through Michael's book, you got hit. You had a huge insight and you got hit. And we can get really high from it. I mean, many people who get hit that way, it's like, wow, and it really impacts them. And I hear that from you, and it's fabulous. But here's the thing. This is not about trying to be in that feeling and then, you know, teaching other people. When I go in to teach a group of people, I'm not in a meditative state, and I'm not like getting myself into a calm, peaceful feeling. I just walk into a group of people, okay? Now, prior to that, I could have a million things on my mind, a million things. And then I walk into the group, and I look at who's in front of me, and as I'm doing that, I just naturally get present with them. You know, it just sort of kicks in. And I'm like, okay, who's here, and how's everybody doing, that kind of thing. And then I start connecting to them and start sharing with them, and they share with me. And from that, that feeling, that whatever you want to call it, starts to kick in on its own. It's not that I go in to get the feeling. It's just a matter-of-factly pointing out the fact of the principles that's creating their experience moment to moment. So, and again, I know you're experiencing this great feeling, and that's fabulous, but you don't want to get into this idea that, you know, it's a meditative feeling, and it's being at peace, and that's what it's all about. And it's more just showing people the fact that's behind them as a human being. And then from there, that's when people will kind of, you know, like I said, I work with inmates, and when they first start hearing this, they're kind of like, whoa, their heads just kind of tilt a little, like, whoa, I've never heard this before. It's first kind of like, what is this? And then as it starts to sink in and they start to really hear what I'm saying, they start to, it resonates for them. They're like, this is true. This is true. And that's when they see the truth of it. They start to just get into the moment and from this realization. And then this feeling kicks into that. So again, I don't want to take away from your experience. It's great that you have this great feeling. And a lot of us, trust me, I mean, I've seen people get so high from getting a first hit off this. It's amazing. But that's the result of your inner wisdom, that inner part of you recognizing truth. Okay? That's where that's coming from. But you don't want to get on a mission about how to be with it, or being meditative, or trying to help people get to that feeling. No, you just want to help people see the fact of their life. just, you know, just point that out to them in a way that they can hear. And that's again where your creativity comes in. Whoever you're working with, it's, you know, how do I help people just get present with me to hear something? And then once they hear it, then they know where to go with it. I hope that answers your question.
I'm going to unmute him again just because his background is bad.
Okay.
Actually, it did explain a whole lot. I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying.
And you know what? That's fabulous what you're experiencing, and it changes how you see the world. See, that's the other thing. You get a new set of eyes. See, now you have a new way of looking at it. And trust me, that will go a very long way without you doing a thing. Just you're seeing it. It's kind of like the paradigm shift. You see the inside-out nature of life.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess it relates a lot too because I mean, I'm like a fitness coach. I'm a personal trainer, but I don't only just like. I mean, I don't help people physically. It's not about losing weight. Is what I tell them. I tell them that it's a connection to you and your body and self-love.
Yeah.
So that's how come I could kind of relate to it. So I do understand it. So.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. You know, when you start with people on an issue, Michael, could you mute yourself because your noise is.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, the kind of work that you're doing is fabulous. But here's the thing. If you could kind of back in what you just said, self-love, it really isn't about losing weight. It really isn't about the doing. It's what's behind all of it. And if you could point people in that direction, then they will naturally start, you know, hopefully making the right choices about food or whatever. I did do a group on eating disorders. I remember I did a group on people who had eating disorders, bulimia, anorexia, and brought the group together. I had a colleague with me. And so each week, they came once a week for an hour and a half, and each week we started talking about the principles. And finally, about the third week, somebody raised their hand. They said, well, when are we going to start talking about food and our issues? And it's funny, we looked at the group and we said, well, let me ask you a question. How has it been for the last 3 weeks around food or your issues? And I'd say 3/4 of them said, well, actually, it's gotten a lot better. And then they started sharing all the things that had changed for them. And I said, well, so do you think we really need to keep focusing on stuff? It looks like you guys are doing okay without it. See, without us focusing on the issue, they started to have insights around their issue. And so, Michael, you know, keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind, that the more you just point people in a different direction, that they are creating their world, that they are creating their experience. And where that is why they get stuck or why they don't get stuck, or why they have insights or why they don't have insights. The more you point them in that direction, then whatever the issue is will start to take care of itself with your guidance. So that's a good question. We could spend another hour on that.
Thank you. That actually was very insightful.
Great, Michael. And good luck with your work. Good luck with your work.
Thank you.
So how are we doing, Mara?
Yes. Yes, he had a question. He said if there's no time, it's no big deal.
Oh,
Let me ask.
I can take the time if they can.
Hey, Yitzi, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you. Okay, great.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have a question I was thinking about at the beginning when you were talking. I had a different question afterwards. So since there's not so much time, I'll ask the other question. I was already exposed to the principles for a few years already now, around more than 3 years, I think, already.
Okay.
I still feel when I have to speak in public, I still feel tense.
Okay.
How have you explained that?
well, and what is your name again?
Yitzi.
How do you spell that?
Y-I-C-Z-I.
Okay. Okay, here's the deal. For whatever reason, there, you know, as we go through life, that again, the nature of thought is there are times where we have a lot of thinking about things, and there's times when we don't have a lot of thinking about things, and that's just who we are as human beings. So I tend to have a lot of thinking about my son. You know, how he's doing. You know, is he happy? You know, I just tend to have more on him. Whereas, you know, my brother, I don't have as much thinking. Like, well, he's going to be okay. I don't have to worry about it. See, for whatever reason, we just have more thinking in different areas. And for you, this is just an area you just tend to have a lot of thinking about. Now, there's nothing right or wrong about that. It just happens to be that's where it's at. But I have a feeling that you don't feel good about that, that you wish it were different, that you wish you could get past it. Now, that's the part that holds it in place. So the more you just, you know, okay, I just tend to have a lot more thinking about presenting in public. Oh, well, that's just where it's at. I think that will go a long way, you see. I think if you feel, you know, pressure within yourself, especially, see, again, especially you've been around the principles for a couple of years now, it's almost like, well, man, what's wrong with me? If I know the principles, I shouldn't have any nervousness. Well, let me tell you, me and Mara and all people who present at conferences, you don't think we don't get nervous? But see, we don't make meaning about it. We don't think it's good or bad. We just see what it is, and we're okay with it. So you see, just, you know, take a vacation from it. Oh, well, you don't have to worry anymore. That's just one of the areas you just have a little extra thought about. And to me, that's totally okay. But see, you have to see that it's okay. So that's how I would answer that.
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Cathy.
Well, I hope that helped. And
yeah, they were really good questions. I thought it was really interesting.
And I'll be at the conference, so if people who are on the call are going to be at the conference, I'd be happy to answer any questions, you know, at that time.
Yes.
Okay.
You said that. Yeah. So anyone who hasn't registered for the conference in St. Paul, Minnesota in September, I would strongly encourage you to, because you'll get to meet many of the webinar presenters that have been presenting so far and will continue to present. And I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, Mara, I can't wait. So thanks everybody for listening.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cathy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.